In 1915, a ship carrying 28 men became completely trapped in the ice of Antarctica. No radio could reach them. No ship knew where they were. The nearest human being was over 1,000 miles away. It would be nearly 2 years before any of them saw home again. And somehow, every single one of them survived. His name was Ernest Shackleton. By 1914, other explorers had already reached the South Pole. Shackleton wanted something no one had ever done: to cross the entire continent of Antarctica on foot, coast to coast. He built a ship for it. He named her Endurance. The Endurance left England in August 1914. The very same month the First World War broke out. Shackleton offered to cancel the expedition and hand his ship to the war effort. He was told to go anyway. 28 men set sail for the bottom of the world. Their last stop before Antarctica was a whaling station on South Georgia Island. The whalers there warned Shackleton the ice that year was worse than anyone had seen in a decade. Shackleton listened. Then he sailed south anyway. 2 days out, the Endurance met her first pack ice. For 6 weeks, the crew fought the ship forward through it, ramming, squeezing, inching south toward the coast of Antarctica. They were 1 day's sail from land when the ice finally closed around them completely. January 18, 1915. The Endurance became beset, frozen solid into the pack ice, unable to move forward, backward, or anywhere at all. They hadn't just failed to reach land. They had become part of the ice itself. There was nothing to do but wait for the ice to loosen its grip. And it wouldn't. Not for months. The crew settled into a strange, frozen routine, caring for the sled dogs, playing football on the ice, watching the polar night swallow the sky for weeks at a time. Underneath the ship, the ice never stopped moving, and it was slowly starting to squeeze. By October 1915, 10 months after being trapped, the pressure of shifting ice began to crush the ship's hull. The crew could hear it from inside. Deep groans and cracks, timber snapping like gunshots. Shackleton gave the order: abandon ship. They moved onto the ice itself and watched their only way home slowly die. On November 21, 1915, the Endurance finally gave in. Shackleton watched with the rest of his men as the ship went down stern, first into the freezing water. He wrote only one line about it that night: "I cannot write about it." 28 men, no ship, no radio, no way to call for help, and no one on Earth who knew where they were. They were standing on a floating sheet of ice, drifting wherever the ocean currents decided to take them, with the nearest scrap of land still hundreds of miles away. They named their new home Patience Camp. For months they drifted north on their ice floe, living on seal meat and penguin, rationing what little else remained. When food ran critically low, Shackleton made the hardest call of the expedition. The sled dogs, beloved by every man, were shot for meat. Survival didn't leave room for sentiment. By April 1916, the ice beneath them had drifted and melted enough to become dangerous. Shackleton made the call: take to the 3 lifeboats they'd salvaged from the Endurance and row for the nearest land. For days, they fought through freezing open water thick with ice, salt spray freezing onto their clothes, killer whales surfacing beside the boats. On April 15, 1916, 497 days after they'd last set foot on land, the crew reached a desolate, freezing outcrop called Elephant Island. It was solid ground. It was also the middle of nowhere. No ship ever passed this way. If they stayed, rescue would never come. Shackleton made a decision that sounds almost insane. He would take 5 men and the sturdiest of the 3 lifeboats, a 22-foot open boat named the James Caird, and sail 800 miles across the roughest ocean on the planet back to the whaling stations of South Georgia. The remaining 22 men would stay behind on Elephant Island and wait. There was no other option left. For 17 days, 6 men crossed the Southern Ocean in a boat smaller than a city bus. Waves reached over 100 feet. On one night, Shackleton spotted a break in the clouds ahead, then realized in horror it wasn't sky. It was the face of a wave taller than the boat itself. They survived it. Barely. On May 10th, they reached South Georgia, but landed on the uninhabited south coast. The whaling station they needed was on the other side of the island. Between them and rescue stood mountains and glaciers that had never once been crossed by any human being. 2 of the men were too weak to continue. Shackleton chose 2 companions and set off on foot. With no map, no proper climbing gear, and 3 days of rations, Shackleton, Worsley, and Crean climbed and crossed South Georgia's unexplored interior, glaciers, snowfields, and mountain ranges, without stopping to rest, for 36 straight hours. They knew that if they lay down to sleep in the cold, they might never wake up again. On the morning of May 20th, 3 unrecognizable figures stumbled into the whaling station at Stromness. They were so disfigured by months of frostbite, salt, and exhaustion that the station manager didn't recognize men he had known for years. Shackleton simply said, "My name is Shackleton." Getting 3 men to safety wasn't the same as rescuing the 22 still stranded on Elephant Island. 3 separate rescue ships tried to reach them and were turned back by pack ice. Each failure meant more months of waiting for the men left behind, surviving under 2 upturned lifeboats, running out of food. On the 4th attempt, in a borrowed Chilean tugboat, Shackleton finally broke through. On August 30th, 1916, over 4 months after he'd left them, he found all 22 men alive. 28 men had set sail for Antarctica. 28 men came home. Not one life was lost. Not on the ice, not in the open boat, not on the mountain. Shackleton never crossed Antarctica on foot. He never accomplished the goal he set out to achieve. But he brought every single one of his men home alive from one of the most hostile places on Earth, with no radio, no rescue plan, and nothing but 2 open boats and sheer determination. He died 6 years later on another expedition south and is buried on South Georgia, the same island that once saved his life. If you want more true stories that sound too extreme to be real, but are, subscribe, because this channel isn't done finding them.